What's going on, guys? Hope y'all are having a great day out there today. So today we are doing a little work on the Typhon and showing this thing some love. You know, with working on the Creighton and the Outcast and stuff a lot lately, I haven't been doing much maintenance or paying attention to this thing. So what I wanted to do with this thing today was go over all the differentials on this thing. I don't think ever changed out the grease in the differentials. So what I want to do is I got this 1 million weight differential oil grease. So what I'm thinking about doing is tearing these open, cleaning them out, and filling them up with this to tighten up the disc a little bit and see how I like it in this car. So that's what we're going to work on, and along with that, I'm also going to change out the shock oil on these because these still have the 50 weight in there, and I'm going to put the 70 weight in that and test it out on there. I'm waiting for the new tires to come for it at the moment because these cheap ones I got exploded on me again. So the new one should be here in the next couple days. I got a set of the Doratrax CS, I believe. They're pretty much the same size. They're a little bit wider than these, but they're a lot better rubber compound, and they should hold up for a little bit. So, all right, let's get started on this. All right, guys. Well, the first things I'm going to get started on is I'm going to get the motor pulled out so I can get the rear differential opened up, take the shocks off, and probably going to work on the discs first and work on the shocks last. So next I'm going to get this motor pulled out, and I'll bring you guys back. Alright, guys, well, got the center motor mount out of there now. The spur gear seems to look pretty good. It doesn't look too chewed up or bad. Everything else in here, I rebuilt this not too long ago, so this should be still in pretty good shape. So I'm not going to really tear the motor apart. All the bearings and everything still feel good. Everything's nice and free. So, still got a lot of rocks in this thing from the last trip. Alright, guys, so I got their back shocks torn off. As you can see, they're doing a typical Arma thing. They're leaking. But this shaft is slightly bent on this one. It's not too bad, though. So I'm going to clean these up, put the other shock oil in them. But everything's all torn apart. Got everything all unscrewed. The only thing that's left is take out these last two screws on the bottom, and we will get the top of the bulkhead off of there. Haven't had this thing open in a while. Curious to see how bad it looks in there. So far, so good. Everything still looks really nice. Nothing looks chewed up at all. Everything looks in good shape. But there is nothing left in there. Like, there's no tension left in this. So throw the heavier shock oil in this and see how she feels. So I'm going to split this open now, and I'll bring you back when I open it up. I did want to let you know, in case this is the first time you're tearing one of these open, to get these drive shafts off, you got to have a 2mm long Allen head and stick it all the way through the center, and you'll eventually feel it grabbing there on the screw. And just undo that screw, and eventually it will pop off. You'll feel it loosen up, and then they slide off. But the screw is right down into the center there and pops off your differential. So just figured I'd let you know that in case it's the first time you're tearing these apart. Alright, so to split the center diff, you'll have two screws on either side of the differential there. Just undo these two, pull them out. I'm going to try not to make the video too long, guys, because I know that it can get sometimes kind of boring, but just in case this is the first time you're splitting them or opening up the differential, figured I'd show this part. They're really easy to work on. They're not bad. You know, I know sometimes people get a little timid or worried about tearing this stuff open, that you're going to destroy something or not be able to get it back apart again, but it's not bad. I was the same way the first time I started doing this. It was like, oh, geez, I don't want to break something, or I don't want to do it wrong, but it's kind of hard to screw it up, to be honest with you. So don't be worried about it. Just do it. And you will notice there's a shim on the gear side right here. There was one shim over here, so make sure you keep track of that, and it goes back in the same place, because you don't want to lose that, because this is what's pushing that over into your spur gear here. So if you lose that distance, you will start tearing these up. And it's also good to check it whenever you put it back together to make sure that this is nice and tight, and the mesh in there is set good, because you don't want it riding out too far, because if it's not pushed in there tight enough, you'll start stripping those teeth off. So figured I'd let you know that. So after tearing this open here, I haven't split the disc case yet, but these gears on this thing, as you can see, are in pretty bad shape. I mean, they are rusted. This one's got a lot of play. This one was on this side of the differential. This one isn't too bad, but they're all in pretty bad shape, to be honest with you. So I am going to change out these bearings because they are about to blow, and they are really dirty and nasty and rusted. So I'm going to change out all these. I have some new sealed bearings for the drive gear also. I got 2 new sealed bearings for that. So I'm probably just going to replace this drive gear with the new bearings while I'm in here. I might as well. So I'll be doing that. Alright, so I got all my parts out here. So I have a set of bearing kits that I got from, I think it was Fast Eddie's. These are the sealed bearings. I don't have the part number. I'll try to find them and put them in the video, but these are the stock Arma bearings, and that is the part number for the stock regular bearings. These ones are not sealed, but if you just want to stick with stock, that's the number for these. It's the AR610007. But those are the normal stock bearings for the Armas, and this is the part number for the drive gear, the input gear. It's a 13 tooth. This is the same one for the Typhon, for the Outcast, not the Outcast, but the Creighton, and also I believe the Granite all take the same one, and the Seton. They all take the same dry gear. A lot of them come with a stock one, or plastic on this one. This was kind of the upgraded, the heavy duty input gear. It has this the steel center to them, which hold up a lot better. But we're going to get our new steel bearings on everything and get this thing back together. Alright guys, well, got the new input gear. Got the sealed bearings on here. Sometimes they can be a little tight to get down on, or you got to persuade them a little bit, which looks like I don't know what to do with this one. I'll be right back. You might have to use like a socket or something to kind of drive it down on there all the way. Alright, so that's what it should look like when it's done. I just had to tap this thing down there a little bit with a socket. They're just a little bit too snug to be able to force down there with your fingers. The stock ones, I noticed, do slide on there very easily. They're not quite as tight as a fit, but I kind of prefer this because you know it's not going to ride on that plastic and burn your center input gear up. So, got those on there now. Now, for the other bearings on your differential yokes, got one on there, and got one on there now. So, now that I got all the bearings changed out, I am going to open up the center diff, and we'll get this old grease out of here and put the 1 million weight in there. Alright, well, got the center diff opened up on this thing. And you know what? I'm glad I opened this thing up now, because as you can probably see, there is hardly any grease left in there. I mean, there's some in there. It's keeping it lubricated, but definitely why I've noticed a difference in the way that this thing handles too, because the center differential isn't really working at all. It's just free spinning almost. So I'm going to let this drain out for a moment, get the rest of what's left in there out, and we'll start putting the new heavy stuff in there. Alright guys, well, pretty much got everything out of there. There's a tiny bit of residue left in the bottom still, but we're going to go ahead and fill this thing up with the 1 million weight and try this stuff out. I've never used it in any of the diffs on these cars, so this will be a new thing. Very extremely thick. You know, I contemplated doing a silicone earplugs on it, but I just don't think it'd be a great idea. You know, on a center diff car, it's one thing, but I don't know what it would be like on, you know, a front and rear differential style car. It might handle really bad. I'm not sure. So I'm going to let this settle for a few minutes, and I'll bring you back when we're putting it back together. Alright, well, she's all filled up in there. I'll tell you what, this stuff isn't too far off from the silicone earplugs. It is some thick stuff. But we're going to go ahead and put this thing back together now and see what it's like. Should be interesting, guys. Alrighty, well, I got her closed back up again here, just going over the screws, finishing tightening them down. Stuff is definitely thick. Don't know what this will be like. Should be interesting, but like they say, you don't know until you try. So I'm going to give it a try and see how I like this in the Typhon here. So we're going to get her back together, get the jaw shafts back on it, and get working on the front next. Alright guys, got her all back together again. Got the whole rear diff. Got the shim put back on this side, so that's back where it's supposed to be. Everything's moving nice and smooth now with the new bearings in there, so should definitely run a little smoother now. But I'm going to put the 2 screws in this, get this back together. I'm going to work on the front. I'm not going to show a lot of that because it's basically the exact same process as the rear. So I'll bring you back when I'm working on the shocks real quick. I'll just show you a little bit of that. So guys, I just wanted to really quickly let you know also what I do with these right at the very end is put some grease obviously on the rear differential. I like using this Permatex white lithium. It seems to stick on there really well. It holds in place. I've been really happy with it so far, so might want to give that a try out if you want. Alright guys, well I just figured I'd bring you back for a second. I just finished getting the front end together. I got the front differential filled with 1 million weight grease also. Got some new sealed bearings and everything, so I'm going to get this the rest of the way back together and we'll get working on the shocks now. So there's just one other little note I just figured I'd let everyone know that might be doing these. And you know, I didn't learn this until I struggled with it for a little bit a while back when I first started tearing apart the differentials on the Creighton too. But just so you know, there is a certain side that these yokes have to go on. The one with the 3 kind of like little pillars here has to go on the gear side, because the other way it kind of fits, but it doesn't want to go together right, so you might try to wrestle with it, but I just figured I'd let you know. Alright guys, well, got it all back together, got the front end differential oil changed out, and got the rear differential changed out, got new bearings in the front and the rear, went over everything, greased everything up. So now we are going to work on these shocks. There's not a lot to them. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with them because I'm sure a lot of people torn these open. But I'm going to tear these open, clean them out, and replace the shock oil and everything. As you can see, they've been leaking. They're covered with grease and mud, basically. So I'm going to get these torn apart. I'll show you guys once I get them ripped open. To take these apart, what I usually do is I pull the spring down a little bit, stick a pair of pliers, whatever, on there, because sometimes this red cap can be really tough to get off. But just grab a hold of the tube of the shock real lightly, unscrew that, and then everything from there will slide off. Got your spacers, your main shim, and then the spring. And on one end of the spring here, on the upper side, you'll see this little plastic washer. Make sure you keep that on there and keep track of it. It doesn't fly off. That goes up towards the top. So I figured I'd show you guys that part. One other thing I figured I'd show you guys, if you've never torn these shocks apart, what you want to do once you get it to that point, you basically compress it all the way and you'll feel it kind of locks down in there. And it's just a normal counterclockwise turn and your tube will unscrew off of the piston in the shaft here and get a weird noise and that should be it. And yeah, the shocks are really low on oil and it looks terrible. So I'm going to get this stuff cleaned out and get the new stuff in it. So when you look down inside the tube, it's probably hard to see where the threads end on camera, but down inside the tubes you'll kind of see where the threads end, and that's about, I usually fill it up to those threads right where the threads start, just a tiny bit past it, and that's where I stop, because then you start screwing it down and that's where you'll kind of bleed it out the rest of the way, pretty much just hitting the threads there. So what you want to do next is then really slowly push that in there. I know everybody's got a different way and everybody's got their own opinion on doing this. I'm just showing you how I do it. So start screwing it down about halfway. Kind of work the piston up and down a few times to try and get any air bubbles out of there. And then you can kind of wind it down the rest of the way and you'll start noticing the oil starts spilling out over the top. Once you get to that point, work it a few more times. Make sure you get as many air bubbles out as you can. Now on the shafts, on the piston end of this thing, you'll see in this plastic piece there's a little slit in it, and that is where you're going to bleed the oil and the excess fluid out. So work it a few more times when you have it pretty much all the way down. Don't see more air bubbles. Tighten her up almost completely tight. Work it a couple more times, and you'll feel it. It feels free and smooth, and it has drag and resistance the whole way through the stroke on that thing. And at that point, crank her down the rest of the way, and if it feels free and nice and smooth like that, you should be good to go. One note on when doing this, you'll notice if you have a lot of air in there, if there's air bubbles, because when you compress it down the whole way like that, it'll try pushing itself out a little bit. And that's definitely a sign that you might have some air in there and need to rebleed them again. But as you can see, like, you compress this down and it stays right where it is. So I know I ain't got any air in there. So that is it. She is rebuilt. I'm going to do the same thing to the other. I'm not going to bother going through all of it. I just figured, guys, I'd show you a shock while I'm doing it. But it feels much better now. A lot better compression to it. So probably like it a little better. Plus, it actually is full of oil now. So that is going to do it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was helpful. I'm going to finish putting this back together. And I can't really give it a test run until my new tires show up. But I'll do a video or show it once I get the tires on this thing and how this thing runs with the 1 million weight grease in the differential. But till next time, y'all, be safe, be careful out there. Peace out, everybody.